The film begins with a tow truck driver, Gary, arriving at Maddie Barker's house to remove her car. Maddie appears and attempts to appeal to Gary's feelings, as they were previously in a relationship before she ghosted him. Her efforts fail when another guy she met the night before comes out in his undies and gropes her. Gary, despite Maddie's protests, takes the car away because she is an Uber driver. Maddie rollerblades to catch up to Gary, but she comes to a halt when he tries to buy breakfast. She tries to lower the car and drive away, but it is still tied to the truck, so she clumsily pulls out until Gary raises the car again. Maddie is sentenced to probation as a result of her activities. And she is also informed that she owes a large amount of unpaid taxes, putting her house in jeopardy. Maddie also works as a bartender in Montauk, where she has lived her entire life. She works with and spends time with her buddy Sarah and her husband Jim. When Maddie gets into a disagreement with a customer who tries to buy a drink before the pub opens, her employer notes that she has an attitude. During their break, Sarah shows Maddie a job posting from a wealthy family looking for someone to date their son before he leaves for college, in exchange for a Buick Regal. Maddie comprehends the date refers to sexual activity but decides to go along with it because she has no other options and wants to take advantage of wealthy people because they are taking her house. Maddie visits the Becker family's house and meets the parents, Laird and Allison. They talk about their son Percy, who is going to Princeton in the fall season but is awkward and introverted, has few friends, and spends his days in his room playing video games. While they had hoped for someone closer to Percy's age, Maddie persuaded them that she was the best candidate for the job. However, Laird and Allison inform Maddie that Percy is not allowed to know about their arrangement. Laird and Allison instruct Maddie to look for Percy at a dog shelter. She dresses up in a form-fitting gown in order to attract him, and she pretends to want to adopt a dog. Percy shows her Milo, a former police dog who was discharged from the police department after becoming addicted to cocaine. As Maddie comes on too strong, Percy becomes fearful and wants to leave early, but Maddie offers him a ride home after taking Jim's van. He pulls out a can of mace and sprays her in the face when she brings him to her house. After Maddie tearfully explains that she merely thought he was cute. Percy says he just wants to go on a genuine date, to which Maddie agrees. Maddie later returns her vehicle to Jim and Sarah, telling them that Percy is unfuckable. Maddie then takes Percy to a pub where she knows the waiter and orders him a Long Island iced tea, which he despises. Travis, Quincy Dunbaker, appears, as he presumably used to date Maddie. He flashes his wedding ring and declares that Maddie leaving him was the most amazing thing that ever happened to him, warning Percy not to become too attached to her. Maddie later joins Percy at the beach for some skinny dipping. While he is nervous, Maddie encourages him to accompany her. Moments later, 3 inebriated teens arrive and steal their garments, which contain their wallets, phones, and keys, so Maddie emerges from the water absolutely naked and proceeds to battle all 3 teens before they surrender and hand over their belongings. When Maddie returns to the ocean, Percy informs her that something is wrong with her. She begins to drive away, but Percy is still naked and demands his phone back. When Maddie refuses to give it back, he climbs atop the bonnet of her car and drives with him hanging on. The cops see them and follow them, but Maddie is afraid of losing her license if she is caught, so she drives swiftly and manages to run across railroad lines before a train hits them, allowing her to escape the cops. Maddie invites Percy back to her house in yet another attempt to seduce him. She performs a sensual dance for him and then has him perform the same until she notices a rash on his back, which he attributes to anxiety. Maddie massages his back as he begins to talk about his past, including how his peers mocked him for sleeping in his parents' bedroom and circulating accusations that he was having sex with them, which is why he doesn't want to go out. Maddie also shares a humiliating memory with Percy. Doug Kahn, a former classmate, shows up at Maddie's house since he is now a realtor and wants to sell her house for full price. Maddie refuses him because she still intends to rescue the house. Percy invites Maddie to spend the day with her on a real date, and she agrees. They visit an arcade and earn prizes before being ejected because Maddie was interfering with another child. They stop near the lighthouse, where Percy begs Maddie to kiss her, which she does despite his awkwardness. She also tells him that she has never left Montauk and has lived in the same house with her mother because her father gave it to them along with some money so that they would not bother him and his new family. They then go to meet Percy's former babysitter, Jody, an adult guy. He feels something is wrong with Maddie, but she responds by calling him weird for being a male nanny to a teenage boy. Later, Maddie and Percy go out to dinner at an expensive restaurant as part of a pre-prom date because they both missed their proms. After he adds that he can play the piano, she urges him to do so, so he walks up and performs Man-Eater for the entire restaurant to hear, earning him applause and praise from others. Maddie is impressed as well. Natalie, a girl from Percy's school, then steps up to congratulate him, and she also mentions that she is going to attend Princeton in the fall. Natalie invites Percy to a party for other Princeton-bound students, but Maddie discourages him from attending for fear of him sleeping with Natalie. Despite Maddie's objections, Percy says he wants to go. The two take a limo to the party, and Maddie begins seeking Percy, having to stroll among arrogant teens who think she is too old to be there. Maddie ultimately discovers Percy in bed with Natalie, but he is sick from drinking and taking ibuprofen. She proceeds to force him to vomit until the parents of the child allow the party to enter and inform Maddie that she must leave. Percy attempts to defend her and accidentally punches Maddie in the throat. Percy thinks he's ready to have sex with Maddie in the limo when they depart, but when he tells her he loves her, she understands he's too drunk and refuses. Laird and Allison observe that Percy appears more joyful and gregarious, which he credits to his new girlfriend. Percy, on the other hand, informs them that he will no longer attend Princeton in order to be closer to Maddie. Allison calls Maddie, who is having second thoughts about accepting the position. To avoid Percy missing out on Princeton, Laird assures her that she may take a car without maintaining the relationship. Unfortunately, Percy is in his parents' car and turns it on, activating the speakers so that he overhears the conversations and hears Maddie saying he wants to drive without having to sleep with Percy, leaving him sad. Percy then invites Maddie over for lunch so she may meet his parents. He proceeds to drink their wine and becomes passive-aggressive before going out with his co-worker Crispin to bring the Buick out into the woods to screw with it. They toss a rock at the gas pedal, causing it to collide with a tree, which crashes on top of the car. When Percy arrives home, he and Maddie decide to have sex right away, but before he can even get inside her, he ejaculates on her thigh. He claims to know everything and refuses to see Maddie, claiming that she would end up staying in Montauk for the rest of her life. Gary subsequently brings Maddie the beaten-up Buick because her name is on the papers. She is obliged to resume her Uber duties in her messed-up car while Percy returns to his room and plays video games. He also does not respond to Maddie's SMS or phone calls. Maddie celebrates with Jim and Sarah after finally raising enough money to restore her car and pay off her taxes, but they inform her that they are moving to Florida for the sake of their kid. Maddie is upset because she thinks she will be alone. Later, Maddie contacts Doug and chooses to accept his offer to sell her house. She sells it to Jim and Sarah so that they can stay and raise their child there, and she plans to move to California. Maddie learns that Percy is at a Princeton mixer and rushes to see him. Even after she attempts to explain herself, he still refuses to speak to her. She climbs onto the hood of his car, just as he did to her, and he drives away, leaving her hanging on. They end up driving to a beach, where Maddie is set on fire by a barbecue grill before Percy crashes into the water. He panics and hunts for Maddie before they apologize tearfully to each other. After they get back together, Maddie announces she plans to relocate to California, which Percy approves of. On the day he prepares to leave for Princeton, Percy packs his belongings and bids farewell to Laird and Allison. Maddie arrives to transport him there before departing for California, and she surprises him by revealing that she adopted Milo.